Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. A brewing scandal in Celina ISD is creating major problems for a public school institution that has been protecting predators of children, and the new law passed by Mitch Little opens them up to financial consequences. We also have a handful of new reports from you for the special election. Casinos have now topped $3.3 million that they're spending, 95% of John Huffman's money, and several other things. So let's just get to the show.
How do I read a react? This guy really likes to hear himself talk. You have no idea. Ask my mom. Way too long, Luke. I checked out at minute 30. That's about how long my podcasts are. So this person checked out like at the very end, but I appreciate it. Why do you constantly swallow and gulp? It's very distracting. You're right. I should stop doing that. Someone probably should have told you that you are not a singer before letting you make this. Signed, a professional singer. I want to make something very clear. Many people told me I was not a good singer.
Raise me up, let me chair a committee.
Then they watched my video and told me again that I was not a good singer and should not publish it. My wife told me to not publish the music video.
If you lie to the voters, then your bills get passed.
And I did so. And Texas is better for it. Somewhere inside Luke Macias is the sassiest little gay man.
Gay!
It's okay to live your truth, Luke. Okay. That's pretty funny. I'm not going back to that. That's a funny comment. Deport Luke Macias.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Let me say this. If we finally cracked on immigration so much that even I'm getting deported, I'm willing to take it bullet, okay? I'm willing to take it for America because we're gonna be in a great situation. If I'm getting deported, then everybody's getting deported. In case you're wondering, I'm committed to protecting America, and I'm even willing to get deported. This guy has a real knack for taking a few good points and stretching them into a really long and boring video. I'm sorry you feel that way, but thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please share with your friends. Please subscribe.
We had a fun time making that ad. We also had a chance to read through a lot of the positive comments that get made on my videos and on the show and reviews. And so thank you so much for those of you who are listening to the show, are following the show. Share it with your fellow patriots in Texas who care about the direction that our state is going. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have to come to you every single week. A lot is going on right now, but it's kind of the quiet before the storm, politically speaking. And so I'm finding myself these weeks coming and kind of trying to spend some time in the morning pulling some various different stories together, just because, yes, dominoes are falling, and yes, a lot of people are making decisions, but a lot of the political intrigue and back and forth that happens is a little quiet right now. And that is the nature of what's happening. We will next week kind of go through the constitutional amendment elections and talk to y'all about what we see from the November elections. But let's get into first the Celina ISD situation. And this is a developing story that has gotten more and more attention. If you follow Texas Scorecard regularly, you would know that we are the #1 Texas publication when it comes to shining light on inappropriate behavior of teachers with their students. And before I go further, I just do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer that the content that we're about to cover is somewhat graphic in detail at times. And so in the event that you're listening to this in your car with your kids, I would recommend coming back to this part of the episode later for the next 5 to 10 minutes. But I think it really is important. So I do want to say Texas Scorecard has done more than any publication when it comes to reporting on inappropriate activity. And I will tell you, in talking to our team, it's become a thing that as we've covered more and more stories, we get them sent to us. Texas Scorecard has incoming information from parents and from students in other school districts that are saying, hey, we had a teacher in this situation. Hey, we had this situation. So they're at this point just coming to Scorecard. The sad thing is so many of them are happening, which is why in my good, bad, and ugly of the legislative session, in the good section, I talked about the importance of HB 4623 by Mitch Little, which was almost killed in the Texas Senate. They did weaken the bill, but they did end up passing it after a lot of pressure from Texas conservative grassroots, which I'm very grateful for. So now we have this situation brewing in Celina ISD, and I'm going to read from Aaron Anderson's incredibly accurate and thorough reporting on this. This is a story you can read October 23rd, 2025. Let's start at the top. In what could prove to be a groundbreaking case, 3 more middle school families have sued Celina Independent School District for gross negligence for enabling Coach Caleb Elliott's illicit locker room recordings of student athletes while the boys were undressed and showering. These are middle school boys, by the way. The lawsuit alleges that the district was not only aware of Elliott's criminal predation of young boys, but deliberately covered it up, possibly to protect the legacy of Celina ISD's famed football program. William Caleb Elliott is the 26-year-old son of Celina ISD's longtime head football coach and athletic director, Bill Elliott. The complaint describes Bill Elliott as a Celina hero and calls the Celina Bobcats football team the linchpin of the city. The lawsuit, which also claims Caleb Elliott as a defendant, cites 2 past crimes the younger coach committed involving Celina students, starting a relationship with a male student at the high school where Elliott was working at the time, and getting caught placing cameras in the middle school boys' locker room. Plaintiffs allege Celina ISD officials knew about both crimes, but kept them quiet and continued to employ Caleb Elliott, allowing him access to the boys he is now charged with victimizing. The victims' families are seeking justice from Celina ISD under a new law passed this year as House Bill 4623, and that is by Mitch Little. As I'm recording this, in about 15 minutes, Mitch Little will actually start a live press conference at Celina ISD and is just a leader when it comes to protecting children who are victims and actually holding people accountable. HB 4623, which waives government immunity for public schools and abolishes official immunity protections from school employees in certain student sexual abuse cases. No duh. Why the heck did they have sovereign governmental immunity when it came to abusing children in their care? And that is what Mitch Little argued, and it is why he pushed 4623. It's why it passed the Texas House, and while it did get watered down a little bit in the Texas Senate, it still ultimately did pass. Here's how the story continues. The law holds school districts liable for an employee's sexual misconduct or failure to report child abuse if the district is found grossly negligent. And that was, I believe, I'd have to go back and look at all of the changes, but one of the things I think that the Senate did was they raised the bar for what it would take to hold a district liable to gross negligence. And so, meaning you have to be very I'm not a lawyer, so you're going to, for those of you who are lawyers listening to this, you'll enjoy my description of gross negligence, but it really just means that the burden for proof for just how involved and aware and knowledgeable you were about the situation is raised from what 4623 had as a standard when it left the Texas House. Here's the reason. Previously, school district and administrators could claim immunity from civil liability in such cases, even as they stated publicly that student safety is their highest priority. So here's the accusation. Celina police first arrested Caleb Elliott on October 3rd for invasive visual recordings in the Moore Middle School boys' locker room. Elliott was arrested again on October 9th for possession of child sexual abuse material after police found photos and videos of multiple male student athletes on Elliott's cell phone. Parents say more than 30 boys were victims of Elliott's illicit locker room recordings. Caleb Elliott graduated from Celina High School in 2018, where he played varsity football under his father's coaching. After college, he continued substitute teaching at Celina's high school while joining his father's coaching staff as a receivers coach. The lawsuit alleges Elliott was reassigned because it looks like in the 2023-2024 school year, he was moved from working at the high school to working at Moore Middle School. 2023-2024 school year. The lawsuit alleges Elliott was reassigned following the discovery of his exploitation of a male Celina high school student. The allegation is that he had a relationship with a high school student, which is illegal, and in order to protect him from that, they just moved him to the middle school. Instead of firing Elliott upon discovery of the improper and unlawful relationship, this is from the lawsuit, Celina ISD moved Elliott across the parkway to Moore Middle School in the summer of 2023 as an 8th grade coach and 6th grade social studies teacher. Under Texas law, it's a second-degree felony for an educator to engage in a romantic or sexual relationship with a student, regardless of the student's age. Now, I could read on, and I will tell you, like I said, Aaron Anderson has an incredibly thorough piece on this at Texas Scorecard. I've read about half of it. There is more. Carissa Richardson put out a statement today about this. Mitch Little's press conference will start in 10 minutes as I'm recording this. And I would recommend that you go to Mitch's Twitter and just watch the press conference, because I think you'll probably learn more about what's happening. And for some of you, you don't live in Celina ISD. So the question is, well, why does this matter to me? And I don't actually like reading most of these stories. And so I think they're important to bring. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think transparency is good for our state. And I think it's great that Aaron and many others at Texas Scorecard are willing to write them. But I will admit, I don't read these on a regular basis. It's evil, it's dark, it's horrible, and it's something that we should always hold school districts accountable for, but the sordid details can sometimes be hard to read and stomach. So that's probably one of the recent scandal articles that I've actually been willing to sit down and read. And the reason I want to bring it to y'all's attention is because what started with HB 4623 is not going to end with HB 4623. And what started in Celina ISD here with this lawsuit is not going to end in Celina ISD. We have a major problem, and that is that public school institutions protect often the predators instead of fighting for the children. And that was before they had financial liability, just to be clear. When they were making the decision to move this coach to a middle school instead of the high school, if the relationship he had allegedly with this other high school male was part of the reason, that is insane. It is insane to say, hey, this guy had a relationship with a high schooler, we should move him to the middle school. Now, we'll find out all the details as they come out. But we already know that what this gentleman did in subjecting 30 victim female young men who are middle schoolers is despicable, disgusting, wrong. But recognize that when they were making that decision, should we just move him over? Is there anywhere we can send him? They did not think at the time we could be sued and pay a financial penalty. In fact, you know what they knew at the time? We have sovereign government immunity. They could operate with sovereign government immunity. They didn't have to worry about getting sued and paying a price. A lot of Republicans who opposed Mitch Little's bill would tell me things like, Luke, this is really going to cost school districts a lot of money. Hey, school districts are saying they're really worried about their financial overhead here, which means they think they've conducted themselves in such a way that would leave them liable. They think they've passed the trash enough that a lot of these people who have been abused could probably sue them and win in court. That's what they're saying. Now, ultimately, Mitch Little accepted the watered-down version of this bill, and I'm hopeful that even the watered-down version could hold this school district accountable. But what was accomplished in 4623 has to continue to be worked on, not only in the courts, but in the legislature. We have to prioritize these laws, and we have to make it very clear to school districts that you have to clean up your mess or you will be held accountable. Here's how liability works. When a school district knows that if this adult individual preys on a child, they could be financially liable. They will take every incident very, very seriously. And not only will they take every incident seriously, I'm going to back it up. They will restructure everything around protecting children. Structure determines behavior. Structure determines behavior. The way you put something together, the way you build something, the structures you put in place will often have a significant impact on what happens. This is not rocket science. Right now, there has been in the past very little incentive for school districts to be very, very careful. Churches have done this. You've seen them do this, right? With just simple rules like, hey, if there's a children's church time of the kids being done, there will always be 2 adults in a room. Or, hey, you can't be with the children unless you've taken this course and unless you've answered these questions, unless we've done a little background check. And then if you've done these 3 things, then we'll let you be with the kids. But if you're going to be with the kids, you're also going to be with another individual of the opposite sex. They're in the room with the children at all times. You won't be alone with the kids. All of these rules are put in place. Why? To protect the kids. When school districts are told, you are going to be liable if these children become victims and you in any way were involved, they have to change their structures. It's not just that we'll be able to make them pay. It's that they will clean it up before it ever happens. That's the reason we fight for these laws. It will clean it up before it ever happens. This bill 4623 was not in place 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years ago. It not only needs to remain in place, it needs to be expanded. It needs to be even easier for parents to seek justice against school districts that prey on their children. And what that will do is it will actually limit the occurrences because school districts will clean up their act. I would greatly encourage you to follow Mitch Little over the next week or 2 or 3 as he's commenting on this case, because I think he's probably the best one to get the most accurate information as this story develops. You can also follow Erin Anderson on X or just on Scorecard. She has some excellent articles on these stories and is doing some incredible work.
But every day I run into something that I'm dealing with the county judge.
Judge Bray recused himself, but as we'll soon see, he couldn't resist reinserting himself into the process.
Signing notices, setting deadlines, accepting candidate applications, rejecting candidate applications. The dispute that ensued thereafter was centered on whether or not Judge Bray had the authority to do those things or should have been doing those things.
Head over to TexasScorecard.com today to watch our latest documentary, Kicking the Circle.
I talked to y'all a couple weeks ago about all of the casino money that was pouring into the special election in Senate District 9, and it has gotten even worse. Lee Wamsgans' campaign put out this statement. Lee Wamsgans' campaign exposed opponent John Huffman's campaign finance scheme to sell a seat in the Texas Senate to the highest bidder. Huffman has established a price tag of over $3 million in his bid to sell a seat in the Texas Senate. Reports recently filed with the Texas Ethics Commission indicate that one single out-of-state special interest has plowed $3.35 million into John Huffman's race for Texas Senate. Basically, what you have is that Sands Casinos has both given John and then spent through the Texas Defense PAC 95% of the money spent in support of John Huffman. $3.35 million, which is most certainly to go up to 3.4 or 3.5 by the time the election is done. And it really is an unprecedented situation. Now, the reality is with this election, it's kind of a funny, interesting election. If y'all remember the Brent Money election, it's similar to that. You have a special election in November being done to decide who's going to replace Kelly Hancock for the next 14 months. And then there will be an election in March during the Republican primary to determine who is going to be the state senator of this district for next session. And Lee Wambsgans has said that she is running to be the senator of the next legislative session. So she is running right now in this special election in November. If there is a runoff, she will run in the runoff if she gets into the runoff. And then she will also run on the March ballot. And John Huffman has said that if he comes in third in this election, he will not be filing to run in the March election. But if he comes in second and goes to the runoff with the Democrat, then he will be running in the March election. And there is a problem when people are only running for office because they get offered $3.3 or $3.4 or $3.5 million by one person to run to get elected. So it's very clear what is happening here. And the good news is that conservative Republicans are all uniting behind Lee Wambsgans. But November elections are a little different. And y'all know this because you're going into these constitutional elections. It's a lot of Democrats. It's a lot of independents. So it's not Republicans picking their Republican nominee. And this is the same reason that we are fighting at the Texas GOP to close the Republican primaries. And many of you support that. And that is an ongoing lawsuit. The Texas Secretary of State, Jay Nelson, is opposing the Texas GOP and opposing Attorney General Ken Paxton. We'll get to another lawsuit that Ken Paxton filed here in a minute, but is also opposing Ken Paxton and Abraham George to close the primaries because I guess our Texas Secretary of State, Jen Nelson, would like more Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. And so these November elections and subsequent special election runoffs are different because a lot of Democrats are showing up. And a lot of independents that aren't Republicans that don't like Republicans are showing up. And those people, when they don't vote for the Democrat, are likely voting for John Huffman. So it's a very different type of election in November than it will be in March when it is a set Republican primary with the Republican electorate. So I'm very grateful that Lee Wambsgans is not only calling out her opponent and holding him accountable, but also working hard in this election. And of course, we will have results for you, I think, next week when we come to you. So there will probably be an update on that front as well. General Ken Paxton is not only siding with the Texas GOP over closing the Republican primary, but he is also suing Johnson & Johnson, Big Pharma. And this was a conversation that was had last session when Shelley Luther actually filed her bill, which passed the Texas House and the Texas Senate, which said that if you're going to advertise your vaccines, then you are held liable. That will still need some changes on the federal side to be fully enforced, but it is a great step in the right direction. And it started down this conversation of whether or not we should be able to sue Big Pharma and hold them accountable. Some of y'all remember the very controversial Senate Bill 30 that was pushed last session. And one of the things that many conservatives had as a problem with SB 30, which was the priority bill of Texans for lawsuit reform, is that it provided all of these massive blanket immunities and liability protections for pharmaceutical companies that harm people. And, often when you talk to a lawsuit reformer, and there's a lot of tort reform that I like, they will give you a handful of horrific circumstances, which you and I and they will all listen to and go, that is something that should change. That is something that should be protected. But then what happens is, because Johnson & Johnson and other pharmaceutical companies are often major mega corporate sponsors of lawsuit reform efforts, they will make sure to craft bills in such a way that while they also protect the mom and pop small business that was a victim to a personal injury trial lawyer, they will also protect every single pharmaceutical company in any way that ever harms anybody. And people have an issue with that. I think rightfully have an issue with that. And when we are reminded about Texans for Lawsuit Reform and their push to impeach General Paxton, we're reminded that one of the reasons they can't stand General Paxton in the AG's office is that he actually sues companies. And Texans for Lawsuit Reform hates that. I have talked about this, but one of the questions that each and every one of you should ask every one of the candidates running for Attorney General is, would you sue Johnson & Johnson? Would you sue Big Pharma? Because General Paxton did. And that's a good thing. I think it's important that Joan Huffman and Chip Roy and Aaron Reitz and Mays Middleton all make it very clear that they would be suing Big Pharma if they were an Attorney General right now. Attorney General Paxton has filed a lawsuit, this is from Sidney Henry, against Johnson & Johnson accusing the pharmaceutical giants of deceptively marketing Tylenol to pregnant women, despite long-standing evidence that the drug's active ingredient, acetaminophen, may increase the risk of autism and other development disorders in unborn children. Quote, Big Pharma betrayed America by profiting off of the pain and pushing pills regardless of the risk. These corporations lied for decades, knowingly endangering millions to line their pockets, said Paxton. Additionally, seeing that the day of reckoning was coming, Johnson & Johnson attempted to escape responsibility by illegally offloading their liability onto a different company. By holding Big Pharma accountable for the poisoning of our people, we will help make America healthy again. And I agree with the actions that General Paxton is taking. More broadly speaking, I also think it's really important for us to figure out and ensure that the next attorney general in Texas is also willing to sue companies and hold them accountable. Because if the attorney general is doing that, yes, Texans for Lawsuit Reform will be very upset, but we will have an attorney general that cares more about defending the people that elected him than appeasing a handful of political donors that are interested in making sure that no one ever gets sued. Another story that hit my radar, which I think also plays into the Robert Roberson case and other things, is that we recently had a Harris County judge that was reprimanded. And I'll just read this story here. Harris County Judge Natalia Cornelio has been publicly reprimanded for her actions in a capital murder appeal. Investigators found she showed bias towards the inmate and undermined confidence in the Texas courts. Cornelio reportedly transferred inmate Ronald Haskell to an MRI appointment by scheduling a fake court appearance that did not exist. The MRI was to be used as evidence in his appeal. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct, responsible for investigating allegations of this kind, issued the public reprimand on October 10th. This is the frustrating part. George Cornelio, a Democrat, will continue to preside over her 351st Criminal District Court in Houston. The public reprimand is merely a mark on her public record that could affect her re-election campaign. She had previously been removed from Haskell's capital murder appeal. We need to get more comfortable with taking out judges. I am tired of these small reprimands. I am tired of people breaking the law to stop justice in capital murder cases. For those of you who don't know who Haskell is, this gentleman that she broke the law to try to save, Haskell was found guilty of murdering 6 members of his ex-wife's family in Spring, Texas in 2014. While he was looking for her, he instead found her sister's family. Haskell had them lie face down and shot each of them execution style. This included his ex-sister-in-law Katie Stay, her husband Stephen, and 4 of their 5 children, aged 4 to 13. The only survivor was 15-year-old Cassidy Stay, who was shot but survived by playing dead. Guys, it's disgusting. Evil that exists in the world. This happened when I was 24 years old. I'm 35, and this man has not been executed. And we have a Democrat district judge who is faking court hearings so that they can find some MRI that's going to get this guy off death row. We have multiple judges on the Court of Criminal Appeals who have had to submit ex parte communication from legislators. Those legislators were Jeff Leach and Brian Harrison, who literally directly contacted judges to try to thwart the rule of law. In Robert Roberson's case, I don't know at what point elected officials who are Republicans and Democrats decided that you can pretty much break the law to save the rule of law. That's a crazy idea. And so this is yet another example of a judge who's done this. And they shouldn't just be unelected. They should be kicked out of office. We should impeach more judges every legislative session. There has to be more done. We have to do more. There's a lot going on all across Texas. And I hope this is giving you a little bit of an update. But like I said, it's a little bit of a quiet time in the political system. A lot is brewing under the surface, but there's still a lot to do. And I'm glad that all of you are engaged. May God bless you, and may God bless the great state of Texas.